Alright students, let's go ahead and now revise the next chapter. The next chapter is the chapter of tax invoice, credit note and debit note. Let's go ahead and take a quick linking and then we'll go ahead and continue. Sir, we started learning GST with what everyone? Goods or service. Goods or service has to be supplied. Supply can be either interstate supply or supply can be either intrastate supply. Interstate supply, what will happen? IGST will be levied. Intrastate, CGST will be levied. Once GST gets levied, GST has to be collected and paid by a taxable person. How will he collect? How will he pay? He will calculate GST is equal to value of supply into rate of tax. Once you go ahead and calculate the GST, now what will happen, everyone? You will go ahead and ask the front person, yes or no, the GST. So the front person will go ahead and tell you, please go ahead and give me tax invoice, credit note, debit note, etc. Right, everyone? And here we will go going ahead and learning section number 31, which talks about the tax invoice. Section number 32, prohibition. 33, tax amount should be shown separately. And section number 34, credit note and debit note. And we have rule number 55 also. Let's go ahead and revise tax invoice now. Tax invoice, section number 31 goes ahead and says, when should you go ahead and raise the tax invoice? Tax invoice in case of goods, supply, if supply involves movement, before or at the time of removal, you should go ahead and raise the invoice. If supply, any other case, if there is no movement or any other case, then either delivery, before or at the time of delivery, or making it available before or at the time of delivery. Delivery means where the risk and reward is being transferred, or when you make it available, then at that time you should go ahead and raise the invoice. Always remember, invoice should go ahead and show description, quantity, value, tax and such other particulars which is told in rule number 46. Invoice should always be triplicate, which is recipient, transporter and supplier. Original should be always for the king, which is the buyer, recipient, duplicate for the transporter and triplicate copy for you. The one point which I want to tell you over here, if you are a person who is going in and doing invoicing, in that scenario, this triplicate copy, duplicate copies, etc. are not required. The next one over here is, sir, tax invoice in case of supply of service. If I am a supplier of service, always remember, if you are a supplier of service, before or after the provisioning of service, but within how many days, everyone? 30 days. Before providing the service, before completion of your service, or once the service is completed, also within the next 30 days or 45 days, you can go ahead and raise the invoice. 45 days, they have gone ahead and told in rule number 47, 45 days is in case of NBFI. N for NBFC, B for banking company, F for financial institution, and I for insurance, basically insurance companies. Always remember, in case of goods, we show description, quantity, DQVTS, description, quantity, value, tax, such other particulars as told in rule number 46. But sir, in case of service, quantity is not there. Sir, haircut, one quantity, one haircut, Baba, it is not quantity. Service ka case mein quantity is not required. Can I go ahead, everyone? Service ka case mein always remember, invoice is duplicate because services can't be transported. It is always the king and duplicate for the supplier. Now, everyone over here, listen to me very carefully. Generally, whenever it's a B2C supply, then they have gone ahead and told what, everyone? I'll go ahead and show you just a second. Generally, whenever you go ahead and read your rule number 46, in rule number 46, it is told that if the value of supply is less than 50,000 and it's a B2C supply, then you are not required to mention what, everyone? Name, address, address of delivery, address of the recipient, state and state code is required only if it is requested. Otherwise, you are not required to mention. Are we clear, everyone? Whenever it's a B2C supply and the value is less than 50,000, you are not required to mention what? Name, address of recipient, address of delivery, state and state code. But you will be required to mention if it is requested. Now here, there is a proviso which has been inserted. The proviso goes ahead and says, where any taxable service is supplied through, by or through. By means if it is supplied by an e-commerce or it is supplied through an e-commerce operator, means you are going ahead and supplying through e-commerce, or e-commerce operator is going ahead and supplying, or supplier of what? OIDR inform services to a recipient who is unregistered, to an unregistered recipient, irrespective of the value of supply, a tax invoice should always go ahead and mention what? Name, address of recipient along with the PIN code, name of the state, and the said address shall be deemed as address on record of the recipient. So the same thing I've gone ahead and told over here that rule number 46F may one proviso has been inserted. And here, if you are a person who is e-commerce operator is supplying, or if you are a person, addition what you should do over here. If it is an e-commerce, supplies are done. If a taxable services is supplied by, means e-commerce is supplying, or through an e-commerce, means if you are a supplier, so you can write over here e-commerce operator or person supplying through e-commerce. Both का case में supplying through e-commerce. Remember one thing, either you are a e-commerce, you are selling, or if you are a person who is selling through e-commerce. Remember one thing, e-commerce or person, you have to change this point over here. Remember, e-commerce, if his e-commerce operator is selling, or you are a person selling through e-commerce, or an OIDR supplying what? Taxable service to unregistered person, irrespective of the value of supply. Remember, you should mention in your tax invoice name, address of the recipient with PIN code and state, and the name and address shall be deemed as address on record of the recipient. Address on record, basically it will be deemed as the address on record of the recipient in the books of the supplier. Can I go ahead, everyone? So, Baba, three people, remember, either you are a person selling through e-commerce, or e-commerce operator, or OIDR supplier. Remember one thing, in these three cases, even if they are selling, even if the value is less than 50,000, remember, even if it is selling to an unregistered person, still in their invoice, they should go ahead and mention your name, address with PIN code and state, and the name and address shall be deemed as address on record of the supply of the recipient in the books of the supplier. Everyone over here now. Sir, where do we need address on record? Baba, when you read place of supply ka chapter, there you need address on record. Can I go ahead, everyone? The next one is section number 31.3 over here. Section number 31.3 goes ahead and says, notwithstanding anything told in section number 31.1 and 31.2, forget what is told in section number 31.1 and 2. It talks about R N B A R S P. Right, everyone? R for revised tax invoice. They have, when do you go ahead and issue revised tax invoice? Registered person may issue revised tax invoice for all the invoices which are within how much time? Within 1 month. Sir, I became liable over here. Within 30 days, I apply. Registration certificate granted. Registration certificate will be valid from this day. So from the date of grant of registration certificate till the date of grant of registration certificate, from the date you become liable. From the date you become liable till the date of grant, whatever supplies you have done, for all those supplies, you can go ahead and issue one revised tax invoice within the next 1 month. Remember one thing, revised tax invoice, when you are going ahead and issuing, you can also go ahead and issue consolidated revised tax invoice. People, you can issue consolidated revised tax invoice, but consolidated revised tax invoice is not possible if you have gone ahead and supplied to registered person. Registered person, intra or inter, you have to issue individual revised tax invoice. Consolidation is not possible. But for interstate supply, unregistered person को if you have gone ahead and supplied, unregistered person को if you have gone ahead and supplied, for intrastate consolidation, consolidated revised tax invoice is possible. Interstate का case में also consolidated revised tax invoice state wise you have to do. But if the value of supply is more than 2.5 lakh, if the value of supply is more than 2.5 lakh, for that particular invoice, consolidation is not possible. So it says, for invoices issued between effective date to the date of issuance of registration certificate, for intrastate supply to unregistered person, issue consolidated revised tax invoice for all the taxable supply. For interstate supply to unregistered person, no consolidated, you can issue consolidated revised tax invoice state-wise. But when the value is more than 2.5 lakh, there cannot be consolidated revised tax invoice for that particular supply because it's a B2C large invoice. And no consolidated revised tax invoice for supplies to a registered person, whether intra or inter. Whenever you are supplying to a registered person, intra or inter, you have to give individual separate invoices. Consolidation is not possible. R done, everyone. Revised tax invoice. N means no tax invoice. Always remember one thing, no tax invoice. Registered person not to issue a tax invoice except in case of multiplex. Or multiplex ka case mein e-ticketing is mandatory and e-ticket has to be done even if the value is less than 200 rupees. Everyone, other than that, if you are a person who is going ahead and supplying and the value of supply is less than, remember, less than 200 rupees, plus recipient is unregistered and it does not require an invoice, then you don't have to go ahead and issue an invoice. But at the end of the day, for all the supplies which you did, when you did not go ahead and give the invoice, you should make one consolidated tax invoice at the end of the day. Sir, R for revised tax invoice, N for no tax invoice, B for bill of supply. If you are a person supplying exempt supplies, or if you are a composition dealer, remember one thing, you will always issue bill of supply. No bill of supply if the value is less than 200. Sir, if I go ahead and receive an advance, for evidencing the advance, I should go ahead and issue a receipt voucher. I should go ahead and issue a receipt voucher. If you don't know the supply, always treat interstate and pay IGST at the rate of 18%. Sir, R का केस में refund, Baba, always remember one thing, refund voucher. What is refund voucher? Received an advance, did not go ahead and do any supply, did not issue any tax invoice. You can issue refund voucher if you refund the amount, and government will also refund you the GST. The next one over here is, sir, if unregistered person has supplied me and I am liable to pay tax under RCM, I should raise an invoice myself as per section number 31(3)(f). Are we clear, everyone? So, sir, whenever one person has supplied me and I'm making a payment to him, on that supply I'm liable to pay GST under RCM, then I will first of all raise an invoice myself. If that person is registered, he will not give you an invoice. If that person is unregistered, you have to raise a self-invoice. If that person is registered, if that person is registered, he will give you an invoice. Then you don't have to raise an invoice yourself. But if that person is unregistered, in that scenario, you have to raise an invoice yourself. Remember one thing, whenever you are making a payment to a person, on that supply you had gone ahead and paid the GST under RCM, whether that person is registered or unregistered, you have to issue payment voucher. So it says, whenever you are liable to pay tax under RCM under 93 or 94, you have to issue an invoice with respect to goods services which you have received from unregistered person on the date of receipt. Sir, if you are liable to pay tax under section number 93 or 94, under RCM, whenever you are making the payment voucher should be issued at the time of making payment to the supplier, whether the supplier is registered or unregistered. Everyone tell me one thing. I told you section number 30. One over here, section number 31. I told you goods ka case mein you should raise the invoice at the time of removal or making available or delivery. Sir, services ka case mein I told you 30 days or 45 days. 31(3) I told you revised tax invoice, N for no tax invoice, B for bill of supply, A for advance ka case mein receipt voucher, R for refund voucher. The next one, self invoice, and P for payment voucher. RN bar SP. Can be, go ahead everyone. The next one over here is continuous supply of goods ka case. Remember one thing, whenever continuous supply of goods is done, continuous supply of goods means which is continuously supplied on a recurrent basis under a contract. Always remember in that scenario that, sir, if there is successive statement of accounts which are being issued, then on or before each statement is issued, you should go ahead and give the invoice. So whenever I am giving you statement, I'll give you the invoice. Or if payments are involved, whenever you are making me the payment, I will go ahead and make the invoice and give it to you on or before each payment is received. So if I am going ahead and giving you a statement, on or before the statement, I should give you the invoice. Right? If I am going ahead and receiving the payment, then Baba statement is not there. Supposingly statement is also there, payment is also there. So Baba, if statement is there, when I am issuing the statement, I should give you the invoice. Or if I am receiving the payment, then on or before receipt of the payment, I should go ahead and give the invoice. The next one over here is continuous supply of service. Baba, remember one thing, continuous supply of service means a service which is provided on continuous or recurrent basis. But here, the important point to remember is it should be period more than 3 months. Only then you can call it continuous supply of service. Now, next one over here is where contract and invoice. Contract may, if due date is ascertainable, invoice should be given on or before the due date. Sir, due date is not ascertainable, on or before I receive the payment, I should go ahead and give the invoice. If payment is linked to completion of the event, on or before completion of that event, I should go ahead and give the invoice. The next one is section number 31(6). Sir, I was providing a service and in between only supply of service ceased. Then Baba, at the time of cessation, how much service you have given, for that you should go ahead and give the invoice. Invoice at the time of cessation to the extent of supply of service, to the extent of supply before cessation. It says goods sent on approval. Sir, if I have gone ahead and sent the goods on approval on 1st of January for an example, remember one thing, if supposingly I have sent goods on approval for on 1st of January, at the time of sending it is not a supply and hence you are not required to raise invoice. But sir, you will be given how many days, everyone? 6 months ka time. You can go ahead and send goods on approval for 6 months. So 6 months gets over on 30th of June. If approval is given here, that is the time of supply and you should raise the invoice. If approval is not given within 6 months, once 6 months gets over, the very next day you should go ahead and raise the invoice. It says over here, invoice before at the time of supply means when the approval is given, or 6 months from the date of removal, whichever is earlier. Can I go ahead, everyone? The next one over here, if you go and see down over here, there is section number 32. Please tell me, what did we learn, everyone? We learned section number 31. Section number 31, 1 I entered and told you goods ka case mein when you should raise the invoice. 2 I told you service ka case mein. 3 I told you revised tax invoice, no tax invoice, bill of supply. Advance ka case mein receipt voucher, refund voucher, self invoice and payment voucher. And the next one, I went ahead and told you continuous supply of goods. When statement is there, at the time of statement. When payment is received, at the time of receipt of payment. Fifth one, everyone, continuous supply of service over here. Due date ascertainable on or before due date not ascertainable on or before payment linked to completion on or before completion of the event. Sixth one, supply of service ceases. And seventh one over here is, sir, goods sent on approval basis. Are we all clear till here? Chalo, everyone over here, listen to me very carefully. The next one is section number 32. Section number 32 goes ahead and says what? Sir, prohibition on unauthorized collection of tax. Sir, if you are an unregistered person, you shall not collect any tax. If you are a registered person, you should collect in accordance with the provision of the act or rules. The next one on the right side is section number 33, which goes ahead and says, sir, whenever you are going ahead and issuing any document, please show the tax amount. So basically, when any supply is made for a consideration, every person liable to pay tax shall predominantly, you should go ahead and predominantly indicate or in all the documents relating to assessment, tax invoice and other like document the amount of tax. And also this point is also told by rule number 46M. I hope you guys remember rule number 46M also goes ahead and says whatever is the amount of tax you have gone ahead and charged, you should go ahead and show it in the tax invoice. Is my point clear? So in the exam, if they go ahead and ask you, please remember you have to go ahead and talk about section number 33 also and rule number 46M also, because both of them say that amount of tax should be shown in the invoice. Can I go ahead? It talks about all other documents also. Rule number 46M talks about only invoice. The next one is section number 34 over here. I went in and told you section number 31, which told about various invoices, etc. 32, everyone. Unregistered person should not collect. Registered person should collect as per the provision of the act or rules. 33 told please show the tax amount in the tax invoice or advance voucher, advance ka case mein receipt voucher, etc. You should go ahead and show the tax amount. Are we clear? Now comes section number 34, which goes ahead and talks about credit note and debit note. Always remember one thing, there are three scenarios when you can go ahead and issue credit note. It says when one or more tax invoice is issued for the supply, taxable value or tax charge is more. If you have gone ahead and charged more, then you tell him a sorry and say, sir, okay, I'll give you a credit note. Sir, whenever goods supplied are returned, services can't be returned, Baba. When I gave you a haircut, can you return the haircut? Not possible. So it says goods supplied are returned by the recipient or good services are found to be deficient, then Baba, always remember you can go ahead and issue one or more credit note. Remember one thing, for one invoice you can issue more credit note, means more than one credit note, and for many tax invoices you can issue one credit note also. Is my point clear? One tax invoice ke liye multiple credit notes can be there, and for multiple invoices one credit note also can be there. Remember one thing, the maximum time limit, section number 34 2 goes ahead and says registered person who has gone ahead and issued a credit note should declare it in the return for the month when the credit note is issued. So if I go ahead and issue a credit note in this month ka return when I file January month, if I have gone ahead and issued a credit note, January month ka return when I'll file by 20th February, I should disclose the credit note over there. But sir, what is the maximum time limit for issuing invoice related credit note? The invoice related credit note can be maximum issued. It should be issued and declared by maximum what time, everyone? 30th of November. So it says over here, registered person shall declare the credit note in the return for the month it was issued, but not later than 30th November of next financial year. This year related credit note invoice is there. Credit note can be 30th November of next financial year or annual return ka actual date of filing, whichever is earlier, and your tax liability will be adjusted. Supposingly I went ahead and issued you a credit note, but I did not return the tax, then government will also not return my tax. It says no tax adjustment, no adjustment basically of the tax if incidents of tax and interest had been passed on. If I passed on the burden, I did not return you the tax by issuing a credit note, then government will also not return my tax. Can I go ahead, everyone? Adjustment will not be given. The next is section number 34.3, which goes ahead and says debit note. Baba, always remember where one or more tax invoices are already issued, tax amount or taxable value or amount you have charged less, then government is going ahead and telling, please go ahead and issue a debit note. Registered supplier shall issue one or more debit note. Baba, debit note ke karan, because of a debit note, you will go ahead and recover the tax and give to the government. So there is no time limit to issue and declare. Baba, there is no time limit to issue. Just you have to declare in the month you are going ahead and issuing. I went ahead and told you section number 31 first of all. Then I told you 32. What is 32, everyone? Prohibition on unauthorized collection of tax. Unregistered person don't collect. Registered person shall collect as per the provision of Act or rules. 33, everyone. Tax amount should be shown in the document. Basically, whatever documents you are issuing. And 34 is credit note and debit note. Besides this, if you go ahead and see over here, one rule number 46M, I have gone ahead and told if you are going ahead and supplying taxable supply and exempt supply both, not to a registered person, to an unregistered person, then you can give one single document. The name of the document can be invoice cum bill of supply. On the left hand side, if you see over here, I have gone ahead and told NBFIT, non-banking financial company, banking company, financial institution and insurance company plus telecom operator, NBFIT, when they are making taxable supply of service between distinct person, they can go ahead and issue the invoice when they are accounting in their books of account or the last day of the quarter, they should go ahead and do the raise the invoice. It says issue invoice before at the time supplier records in his books of account or before the expiry of the quarter in which supplies are made. The next one is over here is HSN code. Baba, remember one thing, effective from 1st of April 2021. What is the number of HSN code? If your turnover is up to 5 crore in the preceding financial year, remember B2B supplies ke liye you should give how many digit? 4 digit, and B2C supply ke liye it is optional. But if your turnover is more than 5 crore in the preceding, not current, preceding financial year, then remember 6 digits are mandatory B2B or B2C supplies. Now, after we have gone ahead and learned section number 34, the next point which comes over here is the delivery challan. Remember, delivery challan is issued as per rule number 55. Delivery challan always has 3 copy, one for the consignee, one for the transporter, one for the consigner. Sir, what are the cases when delivery challan will be issued? Everyone, supply of liquefied gas when the quantity is not known at the time of removal from the supplier's place of business. Secondly, when you are sending the goods for job work, it will go for job work. Delivery challan ke basis pe it will come from job work on the basis of delivery challan. Sir, transportation of goods for reason other than supply, or where goods are transported for supply but invoice could not be issued at the time of removal. You might be for reason other than supply, or might be for reason of supply you are taking the goods and going. Like jewelry, you are taking for supply only, but at the time of taking you don't know whether it will be sold or not. Sir, in that scenario you can go ahead and move on the basis of delivery challan. And removal is in. So Baba, people, if goods are transported for supply or goods are not transported for supply also, but if you are not issuing the invoice, just take it on the basis of delivery challan. Goods transported in complete knockdown, semi knockdown situation, batches or lot ka case mein, where invoice is only one but transportation is happening for many times, the remaining transportation can happen on the basis of delivery challan. Can I go ahead, everyone? And the next one over here is a circular which goes ahead and talks about jewelry carried along for approval. If I am supposedly taking from jewelry from one state to another state for approval, you don't have to take in the other state any CTP registration and all. When you're taking and going, at that time you can move on the basis of delivery challan. When the sale fructifies, basically the person buys it, Baba, at that time you can go ahead and issue the invoice. Artwork sent to art galleries, at the time of sending it to art galleries, it is not a supply, but if when you're taking and going, you should take on the basis of delivery challan plus e-way bill. Sir, when the sale actually happens, if somebody says, I like it, Baba, issue the invoice and charge the GST. So it says jewelry taken along for approval, artwork sent to galleries, or goods moved under similar situation or movement, you can issue delivery challan plus e-way bill. Remember one thing, jewelry ka case mein e-way bill is not required, but imitation jewelry, if it is there, no, amendment has come this time. Imitation jewelry, which are duplicate jewelries, imitation jewelries which are there, for that e-way bill is required, but jewelry ke liye e-way bill is not required. On approval, you can issue tax invoice with GST, whatever is there. If you are going from one state to another for approval, then Baba, you will go ahead and charge what, everyone? CGST and SGST. Within the state, it is CGST, SGST. Different state, then it is IGST. Now, the next concept which we have in the chapter of tax invoice is the concept of e-invoicing. Baba, e-invoicing means you generate a normal invoice. You go to the e-invoice ka portal, e-invoice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 portals are there, out of which the first 6 portals are now active. In that portal, you have to register your invoice. Are we clear? And get one invoice reference number. When you go ahead and generate one invoice, when you generate an invoice and register it on the IRN ka portal, basically you go and get your invoice reference number. When you get your invoice reference number, only then basically your invoice will be termed as invoice. Are we clear, everyone? So if you are a person who is required to do invoicing, only once you get your invoicing done, only then your invoice will be considered as invoice. When you get your invoice reference number, Baba, your invoice is also given a QR code. That QR code is known as QR code having embedded invoice reference number. It says invoicing from which date it is effective now. Baba, actually invoicing had come in 2020 only. Earlier it was 500 crore, then government reduced the limit to 100 crore, then 50 crore, then 10 crore. So everyone over here, effective from 1st of October 2022, registered person with aggregate turnover in any preceding financial year from 1718, Baba, 1718, 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21, 21, 22, 22, 23. Now it is 2024. So, Baba, any preceding financial year, if your turnover is more than 10 crore, invoicing provisions are applicable on you. You have to go to the invoicing portal and register your invoice and generate one invoice reference number. And it says with respect to which supplies you will do B2B supplies. And also remember, invoicing, even though export when you are doing, the person outside India might be a unregistered person, B2C supply, but still you are required to do what, everyone? Invoicing for export. And it is not applicable to a government department, L for local authority, and S for SEZ unit. E-invoicing is not applicable for government department, local authority, or SEZ unit. And those referred to in rule number 54.2, rule number 54.3, 54.2, rule number 54.3, 4 and 4a. Rule number 54 goes ahead and talks about tax invoice in special circumstance. It goes ahead and says rule number 54 1 talks about ISD. They are not talking about ISD. They are telling if you are a person who is in rule number 54 2, that is NBFI. What is NBFI, everyone? NBFC, banking company, financial institution, and insurance company. You may issue consolidated invoice or any other document in lieu thereof. Basically, banks issue statement, and that statement is only their tax invoice. And sir, GTA, Goods Transport Agency, can issue tax invoice or any other document in lieu thereof. They issue consignment note. They issue consignment note. Supplier of passenger transportation service, they issue ticket, and ticket in any form by whatever name called. Baba, that is only their tax invoice. And multiplex ka case mein, their multiplex are required to compulsorily do e-ticketing. And Baba, e-ticket is only deemed as their tax invoice, and it need not contain the recipient's detail. And also remember, they have to issue e-ticket even if the value is less than 200 rupees. Can I go ahead, everyone? So, Baba, in these four cases, rule number 54, 2, 3, 4, 4a, which I call BG Prime Minister, BGPM. Right? Even B for banking company. Banking company means MBFI, NBFC, banking company, financial institution and insurance company. G for GTA, P for passenger transportation service mein who is there, and M for multiplex. Remember, BG Prime Minister, right? Say Mercedes GLS. B for banking company. Banking means NBFI. G for GTA. P for passenger transportation services. M for multiplex. G for government department, local authority, and S for SEZ unit. Remember one thing. Remember one thing. These people are not required to do e-invoicing. So even if their turnover is more than 10 crore, even if their turnover is more than 10 crore, they will not be required to do any e-invoicing. The next one over here is dynamic QR code. What is a dynamic QR code? Baba, dynamic QR code is basically a QR code which is given to you for scanning and making the payment. Now, government has gone ahead and told that for some entities, we'll go ahead and make what dynamic QR code mandatory, and government have gone ahead and told if you with effect from 1st of December 2020, if you are a registered person plus your aggregate turnover in any preceding financial year from 1718 is more than 500 crore. Remember, more than 500 crore. Then, Baba, with respect to your B2C supply, B2C supply, you are required to give what, everyone? The customer who comes to you, you have to give dynamic QR code. What's a dynamic QR code, everyone? Which changes with every customer. Basically, if your billing is 20 rupees, then your dynamic QR code, which I give it to you, it will be only for 20 rupees. Are we clear? Dynamic QR code, you can print it on the invoice or you can show it in the digital display also. And it is basically for enabling UPI payments. And Baba, it is not applicable if you are B, G, P, M, O. Are we clear, everyone? B, G, B means banking company, G means government, G means GTA, P for passenger transportation service, multiplex if you are there. If you are O for OIDR, basically that OIDR, Netflix, Amazon Prime, etc., who is going ahead and providing the services from outside India, those people are not required to go ahead and do what, everyone? E-invoicing. Are we clear, everyone? Sorry, they are not required to give dynamic QR code. Clear? Now they are not required to give dynamic QR code. One thing which I want to tell you, people, exports के लिए e-invoicing is applicable. Exports के लिए e-invoicing is applicable. So exports is treated like B2B supplies. तो export का case में remember dynamic QR code is not applicable. So that point also you should remember. Even though export can be to B2C supplies outside India, but export का case में also dynamic QR code is not required. Is my point clear to all? Can I go ahead? Because they have gone ahead and further clarified. We'll talk about it. Can we go ahead? Circular on applicability of e-invoicing with respect to an entity. Baba, there's an amendment, not an amendment, basically a circular which has come. Banks went ahead and told, sir, you told for banking companies, e-invoicing is not applicable. Banking company, e-invoicing is not applicable. But sir, we are selling gold also, and gold is not banking. So government went ahead and told, Baba, if you are an entity for all your activities, so if you are a banking company and banking company it is not applicable, so even if you are giving banking services, then also invoicing is not applicable. Even if you are going ahead and selling other goods also, then also invoicing provision is not applicable, because invoicing provision, when we told, it is not applicable for certain people. For those people, whether they are going ahead and doing that work or might be additionally something also, then also it will not be applicable. So here is the example over here. Issue whether the exemption with respect to invoicing is available for the entity as a whole, or the same is available only with respect to certain supplies made by the entity. So government went ahead and clarified the exemption from generation of e-invoicing is applicable for what? Entity as a whole, and not restricted by the nature of supply made by the entity. For an example, banking company doing banking services, e-invoicing is not required. What about banking company selling other goods, might be selling bullion, selling bullion, then Baba, then also it will be exempted from going ahead and doing e-invoicing. Are we clear, everyone? Can I go ahead? Now, dynamic QR code related, there's a circular which has come. Not a circular, there are a lot of clarifications which government went ahead and issued. Let's go ahead and quickly talk about it. Government ko people went ahead and asked, is dynamic QR code applicable for export? Government went ahead and told, for export, we do e-invoicing, treating it as B2B supplies, and hence for export, dynamic QR code is not applicable because e-invoicing provisions are applicable. Then again, people went ahead and asked, sir, what if supplies in India, recipient is outside India, place of supply is outside India. If you are receiving foreign convertible currencies, only then it is exports. But sir, supposingly the place of supply did not come outside India, place of supply came in India only, then it is not falling in export ka definition. Government went ahead and told, even though it is not falling in export of service ka definition, still you are not required to give dynamic QR code, because the person outside India, he will not be able to scan and pay by using Google Pay. Baba, Google Pay, UPI payments are for India over here. Right, everyone? So even if you have gone ahead and given a service outside India and that does not fall in export ka definition, still the person outside India will not be able to scan and pay, and hence you don't have to give any dynamic QR code. My question over here is, exports ke liye what is applicable? Invoicing. Exports ke liye dynamic QR code is not applicable. Sir, even if it does not fall in export ka definition, but you gave the service outside India, still dynamic QR code is not required. Can I go ahead, everyone? The next one over here, people went ahead and asked, what are the parameters that should be captured? When I am giving the dynamic QR code, what are the parameters that should be captured in a dynamic QR code? Government went ahead and told, supplier's GSTN number should be there, UPI ID should be there, invoice number, invoice date, total invoice value, and GST amount should be there. Earlier it was told that your bank account and your IFSC code also should be there, but then government went ahead and further clarified, giving one more clarification saying that, sir, bank details not required since the UPI is already linked to the bank account. Baba, when I give you QR code, but my UPI ID is already linked to my bank account, again, why to give you bank account details and IFSC? Then people went ahead and told, sir, see, generally what happens, whenever a person comes, order ID will be generated, and then we'll go ahead and generate the invoice. Yes, everyone, an invoice we'll go ahead and capture in the dynamic QR code, yes or no? And Baba, once we capture it, the person will go ahead and make the payment. Is my point clear? He will scan and pay. So in the dynamic QR code, we captured the invoice. You went ahead and told, in your invoice, in your dynamic QR code, invoice ka details has to be captured. Is my point clear to all? But sir, sometimes what happens, when we get an order ID, we go ahead and first give the dynamic QR code to the person. Hey, you first make the payment. We give the dynamic QR code, he makes the payment, and then we go ahead and generate the invoice. Do you guys agree with me? Sometimes when order comes, we go ahead and tell, hey, sir, first you scan and you make the payment. Once he makes the payment, only then we generate the invoice. Do you guys agree with me? Now, in this scenario, sir, how will I go ahead in the dynamic QR code? Because invoice is generated later, how will I capture invoice related detail? Because you told invoice ka number and date, etc. has to be captured. So, sir, in this scenario, what will happen? So, government is going ahead and telling, What government is going ahead and telling over here, this order ID is there, no? This order ID ka details can be captured in the dynamic QR code, and also invoice ka linking. Baba, in the invoice, you should provide the order ID. Also, how you receive the payment, that should be provided in the invoice. So that government can establish a linking saying invoice ke liye this order ID was generated, and against this order ID, this payment has been received. Are we clear, everyone? That is what government went ahead and clarified over here. In case of retail sale over the counter, payment is received by displaying dynamic QR code, but invoice is generated after the payment. Hence, invoice are not captured, invoice details are not captured in the dynamic QR code. You did not capture the invoice detail. So government says, in such case, the unique order ID or sales reference number which is linked to the invoice may be provided in the dynamic QR code. Order ID may be provided in the dynamic QR code for digital display, as long as the details of such order ID, sales reference number, linkage with the invoice are available in your processing system, and cross-reference of such payment with the unique order ID you are providing in the invoice, it will be deemed as compliance. Basically, if you go ahead and put this order ID in the invoice and also the payment detail in the invoice, it will be deemed as if compliance is there. And also in your system, invoice to order ID ka linking should be there, that against this order ID, this invoice was generated. Is my point clear to all? Can I go ahead, everyone? So basically, what I'm telling is your invoice ka details should be captured in your dynamic QR code. But sir, sometime first order ID, then dynamic QR code is shown and payment is taken. In that scenario, in your dynamic QR code, order ID can be captured. And a linking should be there between your invoice and the order ID. And order ID and the payment details should also be captured in your invoice. Is my point clear to all? Can I go ahead, everyone? Clear? The next one over here is, sir, supplier provides dynamic QR code in digital display, but customer is going ahead and making payment through cash. I showed him the dynamic QR code, but he doesn't want to use the QR code and make the payment. But he will hit him and say, no, you have to make the payment through QR code only. Baba, in that scenario, however he makes the payment, just capture in your invoice saying the payment was done in cash or card, etc. That will be deemed as compliance. So it says, but customer pays to other modes like UPI, cash, card. Cross-reference of such payment on the invoice will be deemed as compliance. Means how will I do the compliance in this scenario? Just make a cross-reference how we receive the payment. The next one over here is, sir, supplier provides customer other modes of payment like UPI collect, UPI indent, or through mobile or computer app, and QR code is not displayed. I go ahead and tell my customer that you can make UPI payment. I will send you one link. You click on the link and the payment will come to me. Sir, in that scenario, we don't show the QR code, but we are using UPI payments only. We are taking by sending the link. Customer clicks on the link and payment comes. In that scenario, is it still mandatory that I should show the QR code only? The government is telling in that scenario, no problem at all. You don't have to show the QR code, but how you receive the payment, that should be captured in your invoice. It says cross-reference of such payment on the invoice will be deemed as compliance. Then people went ahead and told, sir, we have to go ahead and generate invoice. In the invoice, you are telling QR code should be printed. Sir, what if it's already a prepaid invoice? Customer has already made the payment and then I'm going ahead and generating the invoice. In that scenario, why will I go ahead and again put the QR code? Because customer has already made the payment. So government went ahead and clarified in that scenario, is generation or printing of dynamic QR code mandatory for prepaid invoices also? Then government says, Baba, QR code is for going ahead and collecting the amount. If amount is already being collected, why will you again go ahead and give dynamic QR code just in your invoice? No, in that scenario, not required. Just cross-reference on the invoice, how you receive the payment will be deemed as compliance. Then, Baba, e-commerce operator. People went ahead and told e-commerce operator through whom I am supplying has complied with the dynamic QR code requirement. Am I also required to comply with the dynamic QR code requirement? Government told Flipkart is separate, you are separate. If Flipkart has complied, that is because he is a separate supplier. You are a separate supplier. That is for his services. He has gone ahead and complied with the dynamic QR code requirement. You are a separate supplier. You should comply with the dynamic QR code requirement separately. Are we clear, everyone? So if you are selling through Flipkart, Flipkart is a different person. You are a different person. He has complied. Doesn't mean you have also complied. You also have to go ahead and comply with the dynamic QR code requirement separately. Is dynamic QR code to be provided on invoice given to UIN? Yes, sir. UIN holders are B2C supplies. Always remember, whenever you are going in and supplying B2C supplies, you are required to go ahead and give dynamic QR code, because UIN holders are not registered person. When you read the definition of registered person, it does not talk about UIN holder. Can I go ahead, everyone? The next one is, if payment is collected by e-commerce or other person authorized on behalf. So, sir, supposingly Flipkart ke through I have done a sale and Flipkart is collecting the amount. So, Baba, the dynamic QR code, the Flipkart will go ahead when basically the person will come to collect from you, or might be the invoice is given to you. In that scenario, the dynamic QR code, if it is given to you, in dynamic QR code, who will collect the payment? Flipkart. So whose UPI ID should be put? Government went ahead and told please put UPI ID of the person who is authorized to collect. Basically Flipkart ka UPI ID will put. Flipkart will go ahead and collect the amount. It will deduct TCS and then make the payment to you. It says if payment is collected by ECU or person authorized, in such case UPI ID of such person authorized may be provided in the dynamic QR code instead of supplier's UPI ID. Then it says, sir, supposingly part payment is already received. Customer had to make 10,000 ka payment. He has given me 2,000 rupees ka coupon already, or might be he has gone ahead and given me a voucher of 3,000 rupees. The remaining supposingly 7,000 I have to collect from him. So I have to go ahead and give him a dynamic QR code for total 10,000 or 7,000 rupees only. Government went ahead and told whatever balance you have to collect, because dynamic QR code is for making the payment, please go ahead and give him QR code for the balance payment. But in your invoice, right, total amount was this. Out of his 3,000 ka coupon here, voucher he has given, remaining 7,000 rupees collected. Are we clear, everyone? So they have gone ahead and told if part payment is either received in advance or adjustment before generating of dynamic QR code, the dynamic QR code may be for the balance amount payable. The details of invoice value along with details of cross reference of part payment, advance, adjustment, and the remaining of the amount that should be paid should be captured in your invoice. Are we clear, everyone? Can we go ahead? Here it goes ahead and talks about procedure with respect to time expired drugs and medicine. Time expired drugs and medicine. Everyone listen to me very carefully. What used to happen? Now, supposingly, I am a person, I have sold medicine. In that scenario, I'll buy powder. Powder say I'll go ahead and make medicine. Medicine I went ahead and sold to you. Now, if supposingly medicine expired and the time limit to go ahead and issue credit note is still there. What is the time limit to issue credit note, everyone? 30th of November of the next year on annual return ka actual date, whichever is earlier. Right, everyone? So supposingly the time limit to file annual return or 30th November, whichever is earlier, that time limit has not gone basically. Annual return ka date of filing or actual date of filing or 30th November, whichever is earlier, that time has not gone. Sir, if that time has not gone, can I issue credit note? So Baba, tell him to return the goods. He will return the goods. You just issue him a credit note. Simple, everyone. In this scenario, what is happening is supplier can issue a credit note and the retailer returns by issuing a delivery challan. If credit note is issued within time, if you issue the credit note within time, liability may be adjusted. If the time limit is gone, then Baba, your adjustment of liability will not be given by the government. Are we clear? When he returns the expired drug, you will destroy the drugs, whatever ITC you had taken on the powder to make the drugs, whatever ITC you had taken on the inputs to make the drugs, that ITC will be destroyed. Second option over here, which government went ahead and gave is, you go ahead and supply, the time limit is gone. If the time limit is gone, he returns the drugs. In that scenario, even if you issue a credit note, your adjustment of liability will not be given. So you have one more option which you can do. You supplied him, you bought the powder, you took the ITC. On making the medicine, whatever raw material you bought, you took the ITC. Correct, everyone? Now you made the medicine, you supplied him. Let him take the ITC. Now tell him to do one thing. Tell him to sell it back to you as fresh supply. So whatever invoice ka value you had raised, same value mein he will go ahead and sell it back to you. So invoice will be deleted. Whatever ITC he had taken on the medicine, he can use to pay his output tax liability. When you receive the expired drugs, destroy the drug. Whatever ITC you had taken on the expired drugs, you have to destroy that ITC also. Did you guys get my point, everyone? I bought powder, I made medicine, I supplied the medicine. If it is returned within time, I will go ahead and give you a credit note. Correct? When I destroy the medicine, ITC will be destroyed. Sir, I went ahead and bought powder, made the medicine, sell you the medicine. Medicines got expired, but after the time limit to issue credit note, if I go ahead and issue credit note, then my adjustment of liability will not be done. So better I can do one thing. I can tell you to go ahead and sell it back to me. When you sell it back to me as fresh supply, your output and your input, you can go ahead and set it off. Whatever invoice I had issued, same amount ka invoice you can issue, so that will get knocked off. And whatever ITC I have received, when I destroy the drugs, ITC taken on that expired drugs can also be destroyed. Is my point clear to all? Can I go ahead, everyone? Everyone over here now. So it says, return by registered person, treat as fresh supply and issue a tax invoice. Composition dealer will issue you a bill of supply. Unregistered person will issue a commercial invoice. Manufacturer will destroy the return drug and reverses the ITC as availed on the return supply. And the second option is to issue what, everyone? Credit note. Everyone over here, goods taken out of India for exhibition. Baba, when you are taking the goods out of India for an exhibition, remember one thing: when you are taking out of India, it is not a supply. You will not issue tax invoice. Goods will move on delivery. Challan invoice will be given only when the sale takes place. Now, when I took the goods outside India, that time it is not a supply. I will not go ahead and issue an invoice. I will go ahead and take it out of India on the basis of a delivery challan. When the sale takes place, I will go ahead and raise the invoice. Sir, if buyer does not accept, supposingly outside sale did not take place, Baba, if sale did not take place and goods come back within 6 months, then it is not a supply, no tax invoice. But sir, if goods don't come, if buyer does not accept and goods don't come back within 6 months, Baba, see, if the buyer accept, then though you have to raise a tax invoice. If buyer does not accept and goods come back within 6 months, no problem. But sir, if buyer does not accept and goods don't come back within 6 months also, it will be deemed as supply on the expiry of 6 months. It will be deemed as supply and you will be required to raise a tax invoice and pay the GST. Can I go ahead, everyone? Remember one thing over here, payment of GST ke liye you have to be careful. When you are sending the goods, at that time it was not supply, so it was not a zero rated supply. So you don't have to pay IGST and export. You can't pay IGST and export. That route is not available. But you can give an LUT or bond and you can export. When the sale happens, you'll raise a tax invoice. IGST is not required to be paid by you. Whatever ITC is there, ITC ka refund can be taken. So it says supplier is eligible for zero rating. He will be eligible for refund of accumulated ITC. Option of refund of IGST paid on export shall not be available to the exporter. Why IGST paid route is not available? Because at the time of sending the goods, it was not a supply only. You had just taken it for approval. So when it was not supply only, it was never zero rated supply. When it was never zero rated supply, how can you pay IGST and export? But definitely you can do one thing, you can give LUT or bond, and later when the sale materializes, ITC refund can be taken. Are we all 100% clear till here? Sir, what kind of a chapter it is? Beta, generally people say, or I only will tell you that it's a C graded chapter. Okay, everyone, we can call it B graded or C graded, but if you don't know this chapter, time of supply chapter becomes difficult. Are we clear? 2 to 4 mark, anything can come in the exam. Sir, what are the amendments in this chapter? The first amendment in this chapter is, if you are a person supplying through e-commerce, Baba, make this change, okay? If you are a person supplying through e-commerce, or you are e-commerce, or you are a OIDR, whenever you are making taxable service supplies to an unregistered person, irrespective of the amount, you must mention his name, address, PIN code, and state, and the name and address shall be deemed as your address on my record. Can I go ahead? Address on record of the recipient. One more amendment which is there over here is rule number 46A. They have now gone ahead and told, when you are making invoice come bill of supply, what are the particulars that you will state. So they have gone ahead and told, as per rule number 46. Are we clear? As per rule number 46, as per rule number 49, whatever particulars are being told, the same particulars can be stated in a bill of invoice come bill of supply also. Total bakwas amendment. And Baba, the last point over here which you have to remember is, sir, e-invoicing. You went ahead and told, sir, e-invoicing is not applicable for banking company. So banking company, if government is telling, Baba, e-invoicing is not applicable for a lot of them. So whomever e-invoicing is not applicable, is it only with respect to that activity of theirs or with respect to the entire entity? Entire entity. Done, everyone? In this chapter, please remember, section number 31 to you have to do properly. Section number 34, which is your debit note, credit note wala point, you must be very careful about it. ठीक है? Delivery challan. What is delivery challan? Please be very careful about it. Here, when is e-invoicing and dynamic QR code required? And all the amendments in the chapter are the most important part. This amendment and this amendment which is there is the most important part. Right, everyone? I'll go ahead and close my revision on the chapter of tax invoice, credit note, and debit note. Congratulations, people.